Hello and welcome to week 4 of the Legacy Premier League. I'm Cyrus CG and I'm joined here by my good friend, Eric Landon. How's it going, Eric?
What's up, Cyrus? Going well here. Excited to see some amazing Legacy this afternoon. How you doing?
I'm very good. And just a reminder that we are sponsored by Card Hoarder, Scott Monroe, and Wizards of the Coast.
Good stuff.
So it's been a pretty exciting Legacy Premier League so far. We're already 4 weeks in now. This is our 4th week. And do you want to look at how everything is going so far?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you remember who won the first week?
Yeah, if I remember correctly. Oh, are we looking at this week first?
Okay, we're looking at who's playing today.
Okay, so we have Phil Gallagher, Julian, Autumn, and Bob are all playing today. 4 very powerful Wizards.
Yep. What do you predict the outcome of the match we're commentating on first, which is Phil and Julian?
Well, I think Julian's going to win because he's playing a pretty good deck, which is Rug Delver Secrets strategy. But I am not going to lie, I haven't really seen Phil's deck in action, which is like this cool needle stompy deck, we're calling it. It has a bunch of artifacts, a bunch of cool things going on. And, I know Phil's a good player. He's a good deck builder. And I think it'll be pretty interesting to see how that deck plays out. But I just do think that the Rug Delver deck is the best deck in the format. So I'm thinking that is probably going to be the deck that wins tonight, especially since several players are playing it and they're very good. But also, I think Bob's Dark Depths deck is pretty well positioned in this field. So I could see that taking down the whole group. But it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. The Twitter poll showed Bob winning by a large margin. 58%. He's not playing Rug Delver. We do have 2 Rug Delvers today. I tend to agree with you that I think even in bad matchups for Rug Delver that it actually has a good matchup, which is funny. But Bob's really good with depths, so it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, and Bob's also a really good. He was known as a Delver player for a long time, so I'm imagining that he really understands the Delver depths matchup since he's probably played both sides of it so many times.
Yeah, for sure. And with Julian here, he's playing Delver, and he is definitely not known as a Delver player, so it'll be interesting to see how he pilots the deck against Phil, who I'm sure is prepared for Delver today.
Most definitely, yeah. And as we know, the Twitter poll is definitely not the end-all be-all. I won my Twitter poll by a pretty enormous margin and then lost both my matches very quickly. So we'll have to see if Bob is able to do a little bit better than I did. But Phil's at 9%, so it'd be pretty cool to see Phil's brew kind of maybe take a few matches, take a few people by surprise.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely not expecting to see I can't remember the name. It's a 2 and a blue, and it's an artifact creature, and it gets +1/+1 for to all your other artifacts.
Is Master of Ethereum in that deck?
Yeah, he's playing 4 of those.
This would actually probably be a pretty good time to get into the deck list.
Yeah.
So here we have Julian's deck. This is just kind of more straightforward Rug Delver. A new addition here, which is Oko, Thief of Crowns. I'm not going to lie to you. I read this card and I was like, are you kidding me? People are playing this in Legacy. And obviously that's from my side as someone who's this card doesn't really have text on against the Storm matchup. But, it's an interesting card. And then having played against the card a little bit in other formats, it's really powerful. The fact that it pluses up to 6 loyalty for 3 mana is just so insane. I'm not really convinced that it has a home in Legacy, but other people who are really good at Delver and better than me at Legacy have a different idea. So it'll be interesting to if we see it in action at all tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I have similar thoughts as you. I think it has a home in Legacy. I haven't been impressed with it out of Delver decks. It kind of just doesn't do anything when it first comes down a lot of the time. But it does have an obnoxious loyalty, so it can easily take over games, which I guess you could even say the same things about Jace the Mind Sculptor. It doesn't do a lot when it comes down, but it does Brainstorm, and this one makes a food token at its worst, which is pretty much nothing.
Yeah, but Oko answering Chalice and stuff I think is pretty interesting, and then also the loyalty being so high, because Jace the Mind Sculptor does have a fairly low loyalty compared. I mean, 5 versus 6 is I think a big enough difference for 1 less mana as well. Other new additions in here are Hex Drinker. You're kind of seeing that card widely adopted, and then pretty standard past that. I like the standard 2-Pierce split with the 1 Force Negation.
Yeah, and one note in the sideboard that says there's a Dismember. That should be a Flusterstorm, not a Dismember. So there's.
And then it looks like a pretty normal sideboard too, pretty similar to the list that Jarvis played at the Grand Prix. It looks like to some degree, or that the finalists of the Grand Prix played which has like an engineering explosives and a force of negation. Interestingly, there's no crop rotation for Caracas, I think, which we saw quite a bit of before. So people are kind of dropping that tech, which means maybe it's a good time for a Dark the Dark Depth strategy to come back.
Yep. Well, he does have 3 submerges. Another interesting note in the sideboard is he has a Pithing Needle, which you really don't see that much of in Legacy these days, and his opponent has 7 Pithing Needle effects in the main. So there's a lot of Pithing Needles in this matchup today.
Yeah, that Oko is not going to be activated very often. We got Red 6 Oko, they're on lock.
Yeah.
Smart, like a very clever person, Julian was able to diversify his fetches, although not to the maximum degree. So we'll have to see if not diversifying his fetches as far as he could will come back and bite him.
Yeah, how do you think he could have diversified it a little bit further?
Well, he could have played Wooded Foothills, right? And then that would
Yeah.
have diversified it even further. But we'll have to see.
And then one more note about his lands. He's playing a Waterlogged Grove. Some people play Islet. I'm wondering what the benefit of one over the other is. Obviously, one's green and one's red. I guess if you're playing, it looks like he's playing.
He has more green threats than normal, right? He's got Hooting Mandrills, Hex Drinker, and then now Oko. And also there's no True Name Nemesis, which I know is not related to this, but is interesting that he chose to forego that card. Maybe I've heard people say that card's not good in Legacy anymore, which is maybe the spot that we're in. That Oko, Thief of Crowns, is the better 3-drop compared to True Name Nemesis.
All right, let's take a look at Phil's deck now. Wow.
So we're calling this Needle Stompy.
Needle Stompy.
There's some Urzas. I don't even really know where to begin analyzing this deck list. There's 4 Pithing Needles and 3 Sorcerer Spyglasses, that's for sure. 2 Basilisk Collars, which I like the split of 3 Spyglass, 2 Basilisk Collars. That's also a similar split I've played in Needle Stompy decks in the past. So, yeah.
There's a lot of cards here that I'm having a hard time evaluating. I don't know how 7 Pithing Needles lines up against Delver. I mean, I guess if you can get their lands, you could really screw them.
Yeah, well, one thing is that you at least know what your opponent's playing against. So Pithing Needle on turn 1 is going to be a lot more powerful than it normally would because you do know the matchup. You have full access to the deck list. I do like the split of 1 Chalice, the Void, which is usually the number you want to play because the problem is if you have more than 1 Chalice of the Void, you might not be able to cast future Pithing Needles that you draw. So 1, obviously the correct number there. You also have Padim, Console of Innovation. That's a card I don't have almost any idea what the text on it is, but I know it's a blue legendary creature and it does some stuff. So that should be exciting to see in action if that comes into play at all.
I also have no idea what that creature does, but I'm excited to see it as well. Yeah, some other cards that match up well against Delver, like you said, Walking Ballista. Master of Ethereum's an interesting one. It goes great as long as other things have resolved too. Otherwise, it's just going to get bolted.
One combo you have here is Karn. It's not the Great Creator. It's Scion of Urza. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you could use Karn, the Great Creator, to turn your Pithing Needles into creatures, and then Master of Ethereum would pump those creatures up.
So Karn just makes tokens that are big when you have artifacts. So that's pretty good threat.
And draws cards.
Interesting. Also, a lack of Cavern of Souls with so many creatures. I wonder if that'll come up, or if it seems like Phil valued having basics over uncounterable creatures.
I do really like the 3 Chalice of the Voids in the sideboard, which this is just a great deck list. Phil is a great deck builder, and I would really be interested to hear kind of his thoughts on how he built this deck because this is a super interesting deck. I'm still not quite getting the 7 Pithing Needle effects. That's so many.
I'm totally lost too. I'm really excited. I was wondering, like, I seen Phil testing or something because it's like, how did we come up with this? It'll be
one thing is, imagine how insane the mirror would be in this matchup. Because if you play the mirror, you're each are just going to Pithing Needle each other's Urzas, Walking Ballistas, Karns, and then suddenly you're just in welding jars, and you're just in this weird spot where everything is Pithing Needled, and you just have to kill each other with Master of Ethereum. Master of Ethereum would be the best card by such a wide margin. But the thing is, Master of Ethereum could just block other Master of Ethereum, so you're trying to get more artifacts in play, and wow, what a wild. I remember maybe you Chalice on a number to make it so your opponent can't play artifacts and grow their Master of Ethereums.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to get to see the mirror, unfortunately. But maybe in the future, if Phil takes this down at 2-0, then we'll probably get to see some mirrors in the future.
Yeah, I'm surprised that only one person brought Needle Stompy to the table tonight.
All right. It looks like the players are ready.
Awesome. Well, let's get into this match.
Okay. So
All right.
who is on the play here?
Looks like Phil's on the play here, and
Phil's on the
he
play.
has the great hand of turn to Sorcerer's Spyglass, because that's the new printing of Sorcerer's Spyglass. Turn 3 Massive Ethereum, and even if he doesn't draw a 4th land, he could play another Massive Ethereum. So
yeah, but he's got to think about Wasteland. Okay, it looks like he capped, and it looks like Julian also capped with a hand of he has a cantrip, a Delver, and lands, and the Oko.
yeah, I think this hand was a little borderline. I think that if you can treat Wasteland as a spell, which it is in this matchup, giving the matchup, that this is certainly a key, but it is pretty close. Just because going to be able to go to turn 1 Delver in this matchup seems pretty important to me.
Yeah, also, I think I would snap that hand off pretty much every time because you have a Delver and a cantrip, and at that point, you're hoping that your cantrip finds you a Brainstorm, and it usually will. So
Yeah.
looks like a pretty decent hand, although nothing to be too excited about.
We also have an Oko Thief of Crowns. I wonder if what this with Sorcerer's Spyglass is getting. What would you name here with Sorcerer's Spyglass?
It's either Wasteland or Oko, I guess. You're not going to name any of the other lands.
Yeah, I think you just have to name Wasteland, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you do name Oko and just plan to play a little bit of. You're not really ever casting any of your cards if your opponent Wastelands you. So I think that I would be naming that.
It looks like he named Oko, and I do think he's going to have a little bit of trouble if he doesn't draw. The problem, as you saw, even with my match last week, any deck that doesn't play cantrips, you're at the mercy of the top of your deck, and if what you need is lands, you often don't get them.
Yeah, well, one thing's for sure, Phil does have lands in his deck. He also has more Pithing Needles, so we'll have to see which one he draws first.
Yeah. And I expect here from Julian a Ponder and a Wasteland, regardless of what he finds.
Yep, and it's correct sequencing to Ponder before you Wasteland, because although you're almost certain you're going to want to Wasteland this turn, you might find something different for whatever reason you want to spend your mana on.
Yep. And that looks like that's what's happening. He shuffled his Ponder.
Julian not showing the Ponder in the hand section. Ooh, another Pithing Needle effect. This one.
This one, this is kind of what we're talking about. I don't see this one doing a lot.
Well, I think you just have to name Wasteland with this one, but then it'll be interesting.
Yeah, you could also name Renin 6, because Renin 6, yeah.
You care less about Renin 6 than a follow-up Wasteland, I think, because you're probably just never being another Wasteland in this game.
That's true. Looks like he is...
These Master Ethereums are going to be difficult threats for Julian to deal with, though, if they're able to stick. Especially with Oko Thief of Crowns.
5/5s? Yeah, that's going to be a problem for... He named Scalding Tarn. Okay. That basically means it didn't do a lot, because cutting off Scalding Tarn here doesn't do much.
Yeah, because he already has so much access to other mana. I think I maybe would have named a different thing, but, you know... He probably is assuming he's going to draw more Pithing Needles at some point this game, so maybe you name Renin 6 or Wasteland then, but I think that I'm probably in the spot where I would have named Wasteland just out of fear of the second one coming down.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess naming Scalding Tarn will make future Brainstorms worse.
Yeah, I think the problem is that you're kind of losing to what's on right now.
And he's not drawing the land.
Another awkward draw, unfortunately. Was not a big of a land. See, Maskell's Collar coming down, which is a pretty good combination with Walking Ballista. The problem here is that he's taking 7 a turn. There's a Lightning Bolt in Julian's hand, and Julian has a Force of Will. So I think this game is locked up. I can't imagine there's any outs.
I don't think there's any outs from here. I guess the out would be if Julian makes a mistake and plays the Oko.
Yeah, my advice to Julian is to not cast Oko, because there's a Sorcerer's Spyglass naming it.
Yeah, and he really does need that Force of Will to make sure the game is locked up here.
Yeah, but what's going on? Oh, probably going to activate Waterlogged Grove at this point.
Using the green source, so he has Bolt up in case there's a Chalice or something.
Darn, kind of a little bit too late here, even though the Force of Will would have stopped it anyways, because...
Yeah, and this one just doesn't quite do what you'd want it to against trampling Mandrills here.
Yeah, and with the Maskell's Collar, you don't have time to equip it. The walk list is not that large. I just got stuck on lands here, which you so often see from the Stompy decks against the Force of Will, or against the Wasteland Delver decks. It's so often when they lose because they don't get to cast their spells, because their spells are so much better than the Stompy players, the Stompy players' spells are so much better than the Delver players that if they get to cast their spells, they will often win. Yeah. Oh, looks like we're gonna get into sideboard.
All right, so let's look at Phil's side first. So it looks like he's taking out a Needle and a Tormod's Crypt and 3 Spyglasses.
Yeah, those are a little clunky, expensive. Be able to look at your opponent's hand, not really that important in this matchup. I mean, it's nice for like days and stuff.
Defense grids. Defense grid's interesting because it does turn off counter magic, so that could be very strong, but it doesn't do a lot of against wasteland problems. So if Phil gets defense grid out with some basics, then he is going to be able to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, and Phil does have a fair number of basic lands.
Yeah,
kind of got a little not unlucky, but just didn't draw lands that game, and so it's not like he just doesn't have lands. Looks like Julian is bringing in boarding out the Ren 6s because maybe they're so bad against Pith Needle. And then Hex Drinker is also pretty poor against Pith Needle.
Is maybe the consideration. Yeah, I don't know if I would worry. Yeah, I guess he doesn't want too many things good against or good that make the Pithing Needles live. But I think Ren and 6 seems. I mean, as we saw, Wastelands are really, really good against Stompy decks.
Yeah. I'm also slightly interested in that Force of Negation. It doesn't counter the creatures, but being able to counter Karn and be able to counter Chalice the Void seems pretty important to me.
Yeah. Does it look like he has any options for a Master of Ethereums? How many artifact removals does it look like he has?
Does have Pyroblast is one thing.
He's got an Ancient Grudge. Okay, and he has Pyroblasts. Okay. That looks pretty good. So he's bringing in the Pyroblast. He's bringing in an Ancient Grudge, which will be super strong. He's bringing Echoing Truths. He's bringing in his Pithing Needle, an Engineered Explosives, Sylvan Library. Yeah. I think that Julian's sideboard looks quite strong compared to just defense grids because he's just gonna be able to answer things after they've come into play.
Yeah. It's interesting that Julian's considering boarding out those spell snares. Good against Chalice the Void as well as being good against defense grid. I think that, looking at my opponent at 75, I would probably be leaving in all of them.
Yeah, on the draw, though, it can be kind of awkward. Like, you really don't want your answer to Chalice the Void to be spell snare when you're on the draw. But if you don't have...
It does seem like Phil is Phil playing less...
No, he's brought in all 4 Chalices now in game 2.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that being able to win game 1 is good. I do think that Phil's there. I mean, both players' decks seem like they're getting significantly better post board. So it'll be a little bit interesting because I think the game is going to play out fairly differently than it did that first game where Phil kind of didn't get to play Magic, which is a lot of the games that Delver plays. Kind of just stops his opponent from casting spells.
And as you saw, like, Delver having a medium hand versus a Stompy deck having a medium hand, Delver easily won.
Yes. I mean, turn 1 Delver is just going to go so far if your opponent stumbles a little bit, which Phil did.
And here, I would imagine they both mulligan. I could see Phil keeping his hand because of turn 2 Chalice and a bunch of mana. There's no way Julian was keeping his.
I think I would keep Phil's hand just because it does go turn 2 Chalice, turn 3 Urza.
Yeah.
Which on the play, I imagine, is good enough.
Yeah. So Phil kept and Julian mulled. No huge surprises there. Well, I'm not too excited about a turn 2 Chalice, but he's definitely going to try.
Yeah. Julian has a pretty strong hand here with the Daze and a Force of Negation. If he ever finds a second land, be able to cast Tarmogoyf, and Civil Library is so strong. I would maybe not even counter the Chalice the Void from Julian's side. Like, just leave my Brainstorm as the pitch card for Force of Will.
So he has now a Force of Will. I think he can easily just Daze a Chalice.
Yeah.
And then he's got Force of Negation or Force of Will after that, and he's got the Sylvan Library, like you said, in Tarmogoyf. I feel like it's going to be very, very... Oh, well, I mean, there's a draw for Phil that's going to make it so that things change quite significantly, but he's still going to be able to Daze this.
Yeah, but then that's going to send him a turn off playing the Tarmogoyf, which is significant here. I wonder if there's a world where you do just force this because it's so important to cast Tarmogoyf on turn 2. And I actually think that I would be medium interested in that, but it's close.
It looks like he's doing it, and he's pitching Brainstorm. He must have another land then on top for his Sylvan Library and Tarmogoyf, and feels pretty confident about having a Force of Will after that.
Yeah, I think this is a reasonable play. I think that if you're waiting until turn 3 to cast Tarmogoyf, that just so much slower. And I would play the Tarmogoyf here. I mean, it's nice to have a draw step with the Sylvan Library, but you kind of already have what you need in your hand right now, which is a follow-up threat plus a counterspell. And so I think that I like leading with Tarmogoyf here.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a strong play.
So now we're in this awkward position where Chalice the Blade doesn't really do anything.
Yeah,
One interesting play Phil could make here is use Chalice the Blade on 0 to turn on Lux Opal plus see the Synod and just cast Urza, which is a play that I would consider making. But if I was Julian, I would not counter this.
Yeah, no, that Chalice seems like pretty easily ignored. Now that you have your threat in play, you have your 2 mana cantrip for the rest of the game, and you have a counter spell, 2 counter spells. Well, 1.5.
Still, Phil has a lot of really powerful cards in his deck, but Civil Library is going to kind of let Julian keep up with whatever Phil's able to play. Now this, last game struggled on lands. This game kind of flooding out on lands, which is one of the difficulties of these Stompy type decks. Urza's going to come down here, playing around days, which is nice. My play would not have played around that, so I think this was correct. It's hard to believe this was a mold to 6 from Julian. What a great hand.
Yeah, mold to 6 with Delver sometimes. You just need one threat and your hand looks great. Even after you forced a couple things, you don't have anything in hand, but you're beating down so fast.
Yep. Then, life total, not a huge concern here for him. So I imagine I would probably pay 4 life, take with the fetch, and take this. No, the spell shard doesn't do anything. You just take one of the fetches and shuffle away the rest.
Yeah.
Oh, interestingly, kept the spell snare in hand. Maybe forgot there's a Chalice in the Void on 1 like I did.
He might want it as a blue card for further forces, but yeah, I think you're probably right that he don't really need to keep it. It would appear though that Phil is not drawing any action.
Yeah, Phil getting a little unlucky here, but there's still so many powerful cards in Phil's deck. He could just draw another Urza or something, and probably win this game.
Master of Ethereum also would just, put a complete stop to what Julian's doing at least.
And that's what's terrifying about playing against these Stompy decks as
a second Tarmogoyf
as Delver. See, interestingly here, not electing to keep any of their cards to clear the top. Oh, it is going to keep one of them. No, it didn't. But paid life before. So I think I would have just not taken the spell snare so that I could pay life on a future turn with better cards. But
yeah, you might be right about the Chalice of the Void thing. Those can be easy to forget. That can find him something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things that can find. I think Walking Ballista is the main one that I can think of, which isn't going to be great here. We'll have to see what else it could find, though.
Could find a Master of Ethereum. It might be too late.
Pulling up the deck list now.
I think it's too late because it's going to be going down to 1.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you could do here. I mean, you can... Well, yeah, you can't find and cast something on this turn, but you can find a 2-drop and cast it on this turn. So I'm thinking you maybe just find Master of Ethereum, and then if you draw Urza and your opponent does not have a counterspell, you're able to play either double Master of Ethereum or double Urza, and that would get you back in the game. So I think that's the play I would make here: is play Inventor's Fair, search for Master of Ethereum, and hope that gets there.
Yeah, Master of Ethereum and the Basilisk Collar's on out because of Chalice. So he's going to need something else to go along with whatever he searches up.
Yeah, so someone in chat pointing out that Snare, it might be dead, but it's a bad top deck anyway. So the thing about fetch lands in the Civil Library is you can use fetch lands to clear the Civil Library, and then you get relooks. So that is a good point, but that is not what the case was there.
Yeah, he had the option to just take a fetch land, fetch. He gets 3 new looks the following turn, and then he can start taking more damage because he didn't take damage the first time.
Definitely.
Because in this situation, it's like he's got to potentially take 8, to clear the top. Yeah, that's what he's doing. To ensure good draws next turn, he gets 3 new looks.
Yeah, chat pointing out some other things like you could pitch Snare to Force of Will, but the thing is that you could just pay the life in a future turns, I think.
Yeah, he also had a daze in his hand for Force of Will. All right, so let's see what Phil decides to get.
Yeah, I think it has to be Master of Ethereum, and then I hope you draw another Master of Ethereum here. Nope.
That's not going to do it.
That's going to be the game. Yeah. Match, even.
The second master also wouldn't have done it because Julian was going to be able to pay for days.
So the thing is, this Urza would not have done it, but a second master of Thraben would have done it because you could pay for the days.
Oh, you're right. There's a Chrome Mox in play.
Yeah, defense grid would have been nice here. Well, not defense grid, sorry, ensnaring bridge.
True. That would be a little bit awkward with your massive Master of Ethereum plan, though.
Yeah, your plan at that point would be just to win with Walking Ballista, but
I just mean in his deck building. I'm not surprised he didn't include it for that reason.
It's pretty funny that Julian boarded in Pithing Needle here against the Needle Stompy deck. So maybe maybe he was thinking that is the best counter to the needles is to Pithing Needle.
You can name whatever you want with Pithing Needle.
I have a good story about Pithing Needle that maybe I'll tell another time. But basically, it involved my opponent, me sitting next to someone where Pithing Needle named Gifts Ungiven, and the player just goes, "Why would you not just name Grapeshot? I couldn't win if you did that." Then concede.
I had somebody name Ancient Grudge once. That was pretty great.
Sometimes you just have to hope.
Yeah, I've named Lion's Eye Diamond many a time.
Me too.
All right.
I have a rule. If my opponent Lion's Eye Diamond with Pithing Needle, I try as hard as I can to play around it so that they'll do that again in the future. So yeah, that one at the end kind of Phil flooded out one game, got mana in one game, which is kind of the nature of these stompy decks compared to the really highly consistent cantrip decks in Legacy, is that you're kind of hoping that your chalices reduce their draws, but still you have expensive cards and no great way to filter your cards. So
yeah, I've played a fair number of stompy decks, and I always feel like, man, when they're running hot, they feel so good, but so often they end up doing what we saw there, and that's just you don't draw the right number of lands or you draw too many lands.
Yeah, certainly. So looks like we're gonna be right back for the next match.
All right.